I was sitting in a title company conference room on West Wisconsin Avenue, watching my own wife sell my dead mother's house to me, and she had absolutely no idea I was on the other side of the transaction. Vanessa was in the lobby, signing papers, smiling at the closing agent, wearing the Tory Burch blazer she bought with money she stole from our joint savings. And I was 2 floors up, watching through a live video feed my attorney had arranged, eating a cold bratwurst from Usinger's and waiting for the exact moment her signature hit the dotted line. Because once it did, I owned everything. The house, the evidence, the leverage to end her. She was holding a manila folder with a children's sticker on it. A glittery dinosaur. It wasn't from our kids. We don't have kids. That sticker came from somewhere else, and I knew exactly where. But I'll get to that. Let me back up. Because this story doesn't begin in a conference room. It begins with a $2,200 hotel charge, a forensic accountant who was too boring for his own wife, and a dead woman's house in Mint Hill that smelled like cinnamon and pledge. My name is Garrison Lyle. I'm 28. I know. Young to be in this situation. Young to be a widowed son, a betrayed husband, a man who spent 4 months building a legal trap so precise it would make a Swiss watchmaker jealous. But grief ages you in dog years, and betrayal adds a decade on top of that. So mentally, I'm about 97. I'm a forensic data recovery specialist. That's the official title. What it means in practice is that companies hire me when someone deletes something they shouldn't have, and I pull it back from the digital grave. Emails, texts, financial records, browser histories people swore they cleared. I work for a firm called Harwick Digital Solutions in Milwaukee, and I make $138,000 a year finding things people desperately want to stay hidden. My wife knew this about me. She watched me do it for a living, and she still thought she could hide a 6-figure real estate transaction from me. The arrogance of that still makes me laugh, this bitter, sharp laugh that comes out of my chest like a cough. Growing up, it was just me and my mom, Lorraine. Dad left when I was 4. Not dramatically, no fight, no suitcase thrown on the lawn. He just stopped coming home. First it was one night, then 2. Then Lorraine stopped setting a 3rd plate at dinner, and we never talked about it again. We lived in a 3-bedroom bungalow in Mint Hill, which is this quiet suburb east of Charlotte. Mom was a dental hygienist. She worked at the same practice for 22 years, and she paid off that house by the time I was 16. Every month, she'd make her mortgage payment and then write the remaining balance on a Post-it note and stick it to the fridge. I watched that number shrink my entire childhood. When it hit 0, she cried into a dish towel and then made us pork chops to celebrate. That house was everything. My height marks were penciled on the kitchen door frame, a new line every birthday until I was 18. The backyard had a Japanese maple she planted the year I was born. The guest room still had my Star Wars bed sheets on the twin mattress because she said she wanted it ready in case I ever needed to come home. My Uncle Orrin, Lorraine's older brother, he was the closest thing I had to a father figure. He ran a small property management company in Gastonia, and every summer I'd help him turn over rental units, painting, plumbing, changing locks. He taught me how things worked, but more than that, he taught me how people worked. Orrin had this saying he'd repeat every time we'd find damage a tenant tried to cover up. A painted-over water stain, a rug thrown over a burn mark. He'd look at me and say, "The mess is always under the pretty part, Garrison. Always check under the pretty part." Not exactly poetry, but it was the truest thing anyone ever told me. Hold on to that. It becomes the whole story. I was always good with patterns and data. Numbers, metadata, timestamps. My brain just organized them automatically, the way some people can hear a song once and play it back. In college at UNC Charlotte, I double majored in computer science and accounting, which is exactly as boring as it sounds and exactly as useful as you'd think. I could look at a spreadsheet and feel when something was off before I could prove it. A rhythm disruption, a gap. That skill got me hired at Harwick straight out of school, and within 4 years I was their lead recovery analyst. I had no idea how much that one skill would matter outside of work, not yet. The dream was always to flip houses. Orrin put that in my head. Buy distressed properties, fix them up, sell them. I had a notebook, an actual physical notebook with a leather cover Lorraine gave me for Christmas, full of floor plans and renovation budgets and neighborhoods I was watching. Vanessa used to call it my little hobby binder. She said it the way you'd describe a child's crayon drawing, dismissive, fond in a way that was actually condescending. But I kept that notebook, every page. And then I met Vanessa Caldwell at a friend's housewarming party in Wicker Park, late September 2019. Milwaukee was doing that thing where the air smells like wood smoke and dying leaves, and you can feel winter loading in the background. She was standing by the kitchen island, holding a glass of Prosecco, telling a story about a house she'd just listed that had a secret room behind the basement drywall. She was magnetic, tall. This deep, rolling laugh that made everyone in the room lean in. She was a licensed real estate agent with Lakefront Realty, and she talked about properties the way some people talk about music, with genuine passion and specific detail. I was gone, completely gone. And for the first time in my quiet, spreadsheet-organized life, I thought I'd found my person. I was wrong about a lot of things back then, but I was especially wrong about that. The first year was good. Actually good, not the fake good you construct in hindsight to justify staying. We'd drive around Milwaukee on Sundays, and she'd point out houses and tell me their stories. When they were built, what they'd sold for, which ones were undervalued. We ate cheese curds at the public market and argued about whether Leon's or Kopp's had better frozen custard. She met Lorraine over Thanksgiving 2019, and my mom loved her. Pulled me aside in the kitchen and said, "She's got bright eyes, Garrison. Keep her." Lorraine was already sick by then, though we didn't know it yet. The diagnosis came 4 months later. Vanessa was wonderful during the early months of Lorraine's illness. She drove down to Charlotte twice. She organized meal deliveries. She held my hand in the oncologist's waiting room when they told us stage 4, inoperable. I married her in June 2020, a courthouse ceremony during COVID, just us and 2 witnesses. I remember thinking, at least I have her. At least when I lose my mom, I won't be alone. But here's the thing about Vanessa, and I need you to remember this because it's the key to everything that happened. Vanessa didn't just sell houses. She understood transactions. She understood paperwork. She understood how to move assets, how to structure deals, how to make ownership transfers look routine. That professional knowledge, paired with what she was actually doing behind my back, it was like handing a safecracker a set of lockpicks and then leaving the vault door open. The warning signs started about 8 months into the marriage. Small things. Her phone migrated from the coffee table to her pocket, always face down when she did set it down. I noticed one night at Odd Duck, this restaurant on South 2nd Street, she got a text and physically angled her body away from me to read it. The motion was quick, practiced, like she'd done it 100 times. I told myself it was nothing. It was not nothing. Then the compliment stopped. Vanessa had this way of looking at me early on, like I was interesting, like my quietness was depth, not deficit. That changed. By month 10, my silence wasn't mysterious anymore. It was a problem. "You never talk, Garrison. It's like living with furniture." She said that at her friend Margot's birthday dinner. in front of 8 people. Everyone laughed. I didn't. I just ate my risotto and filed it away. And then there was the password. Our shared laptop, a Dell we kept in the home office, suddenly had a new login. She said it was for work security. I didn't push, but I noticed. I always noticed. I was trained to notice. That's what people never understood about me. My silence wasn't absence, it was collection. And that was the night I checked her email. Not the one she shared with me, but a backup Gmail I found cached in the browser's autofill. What I found in there didn't make me angry. Not yet. It made me cold, like someone had poured ice water directly into my bloodstream and it was spreading slow, reaching every finger, every toe. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about Derek Baines first. Derek was Vanessa's brokerage manager at Lakefront Realty. 44 years old, divorced, drove a leased BMW X5 and wore Tom Ford cologne that you could smell from across a parking lot. He was the kind of man who called every woman sweetheart and every man buddy, and somehow got away with both. He signed off on Vanessa's listings. He approved her commission structures. And he'd been sleeping with my wife since March 2021, which means it started while my mother was still in hospice care and Vanessa was supposedly helping me manage Lorraine's medications. Let me sit with that for a second, because I need you to understand the timeline. My mother was dying. She was 57 years old, shrinking in a hospital bed in Charlotte, asking me to promise I'd keep her house in the family. And while I was on the phone with Lorraine's palliative care nurse, while I was crying in the bathroom at 2 a.m. so Vanessa wouldn't see, while I was signing DNR paperwork, Vanessa was texting Derek photos from our bedroom. I know this because I recovered every single one of those messages, every timestamp, every image. Professionally, I've reconstructed data from fire-damaged hard drives. Pulling my wife's affair off a backed-up iCloud account was, technically speaking, the easiest job I've ever done. Lorraine died on August 14th, 2022. Pancreatic cancer. She was awake at the end, which was a mercy and a cruelty at the same time. She held my hand and said, "The house is yours, baby. Keep it warm." I promised. I meant it with every cell in my body. At the funeral in Charlotte, Vanessa cried harder than I did. She sobbed against Derek's wife's shoulder. Yes, Derek had remarried by then, a woman named Paloma who had no idea what was happening. Vanessa made a scene. She told everyone I was shutting down and not processing properly. She said it with this concerned look, this furrowed brow, like she was the devoted wife managing a fragile husband. Meanwhile, I was the one who had bathed my mother, changed her sheets, sat with her when the morphine wasn't enough. Vanessa visited Lorraine exactly 3 times in hospice. I counted. After the funeral, Vanessa took control of our finances. She framed it as helping. "You're grieving, Garrison. You're not thinking clearly. Let me handle the bills for a while." And I let her. Not because I was weak, because I was watching. I wanted to see what she would do with access. You don't catch a thief by locking the door. You catch them by leaving it open and installing a camera. Lorraine's house passed to me through her will. Clean title, no liens, no mortgage. Appraised at $387,000. I put it in a trust, the Lorraine Lyle Family Trust, with myself as sole trustee. Or at least that's what was supposed to happen. What actually happened was Vanessa, using her real estate expertise and access to our shared filing cabinet, intercepted the trust paperwork. She told me it was filed and processed. It was not. She had kept the property in probate limbo, and then, this is the part that still makes my jaw tight, she began the process of listing my mother's house for sale, under her own brokerage, with Derek Baines as the approving manager. She forged my signature on the listing agreement. I know this because I had the document analyzed by a handwriting expert named Whit Calloway who works with our firm on fraud cases. He confirmed it in 11 minutes. The G in Garrison was wrong. Vanessa always made her G's with a loop at the bottom. I don't. She'd practiced, but not enough. The listing went live on March 3rd, 2023. She priced it at $362,000, deliberately under market value for a quick sale. She used a photography service out of Charlotte, not Milwaukee, so I'd never see the marketing materials locally. The house appeared on MLS under a property ID I would never have searched for because I believed it was safely in trust. She told me the trust was handled. She said, "Your mother would have wanted me to handle this." Those exact words. I remember because I was eating leftover pad thai from Bangkok Palace, and I almost choked. Not from the food, but from the sheer audacity of invoking my dead mother to cover a theft. Here's where her plan got ambitious. The proceeds from the sale, she intended to funnel them into a joint account she'd opened with Derek at a credit union in Racine. Not a bank, a credit union. Because credit unions have different reporting thresholds, and she knew that. She'd been studying financial structures the way I study corrupted data, methodically, looking for gaps to exploit. The money was supposed to fund a condo purchase in Asheville, North Carolina. A love nest, for her and Derek, purchased with the money from my dead mother's house. I found out about all of this on a Tuesday in February, the 14th, Valentine's Day. Because the universe has a sense of humor that borders on sadistic. I was running a routine data recovery for a client, pulling deleted emails from a corrupted Exchange server. And I decided to run the same recovery protocol on our shared home network. Call it instinct. Call it professional paranoia. Call it the fact that Vanessa had been leaving for client showings every Saturday for 2 months and coming home smelling like Tom Ford cologne that she definitely did not wear. The recovery pulled 1,247 deleted files, emails, PDFs, screenshots of Venmo transfers, and one document that made my vision narrow to a pinpoint. A listing agreement for 814 Chestnut Lane, Mint Hill, North Carolina. My mother's address, my mother's house, with my forged signature at the bottom. I sat in my home office for 45 minutes without moving. The pad thai went cold. The screensaver kicked in. And something inside me, not anger, not sadness, something quieter and harder, like a bolt sliding into a lock, clicked into place. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I opened a new spreadsheet. Column A, what Vanessa said. Column B, what was actually true. Column C, what I was going to do about it. You want to know the first entry in column C? Buy the house. See, here's what Vanessa didn't understand. She thought my silence was stupidity. She thought my grief was blindness. She told Derek in a text I recovered, and I'm quoting directly. He has no idea. He literally doesn't check anything. It's almost sad. Almost sad. My wife described my trust in her as almost sad. I printed that text out and kept it in my wallet for 4 months. Not as motivation, as a reminder of who I was dealing with. Oren's voice was in my head. The mess is always under the pretty part. Always check under the pretty part. And I had checked, and the mess was catastrophic. I called my uncle that night. First time we'd talked in weeks, I'd been pulling away from everyone, which Vanessa encouraged because isolation made me easier to control. Oren listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for maybe 10 seconds. Then he said, "How long until she closes?" I told him the listing had been active for 3 weeks, with 2 offers pending. He said, "Then you've got time, but not much. Get a lawyer who doesn't play nice." I found Kestrel Park, That's her real name. Her parents were ornithologists. Kestrel was a real estate litigation attorney at a boutique firm on East Kilburn. She was 36, 5'2", and had the energy of someone who drinks espresso intravenously. When I laid out the evidence, she leaned back in her chair, steepled her fingers, and said, "Mr. Lyle, your wife committed about 7 felonies. Would you like to address them legally, financially, or both?" I said both. She smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Here's the plan we built. And I need you to understand, I'm not a vindictive person. I'm really not. Before all this, my idea of confrontation was sending an email with a period instead of an exclamation point. But Vanessa had taken the one thing in this world I could not replace, and she'd done it while telling me she loved me, while sleeping in my bed, while using my grief as a smokescreen. So no, I was not going to confront her. I was not going to yell. I was going to buy my mother's house out from under her, trap her in her own fraud, and let the legal system finish what she started. Step 1. I created an LLC, Lakewood Holdings, registered in Delaware, with zero traceable connection to Garrison Lyle. Kestrel set it up through a registered agent service. Cost me $847. The LLC would be the buyer of 814 Chestnut Lane. Step 2. I submitted an offer through the LLC at full asking price, $362,000. Cash, no contingencies, no inspection. In real estate, that's like showing up with a suitcase full of money. Vanessa, who was listing the house and therefore receiving the offer, accepted within 4 hours. She was so eager to close that she didn't do enhanced due diligence on the buyer. She just saw cash, no contingencies, and fast closing. She sent Derek a text that night. "We're about to be $360,000 richer, baby." I have that text too. Step 3. I quietly separated my finances, opened a new account at a different bank, redirected my direct deposit, moved my personal savings, $94,000, into an account Vanessa couldn't access. I did this over 3 weeks, in small transfers, each under the threshold that would trigger a notification on our joint account app. Step 4. I documented everything. Every forged document, every recovered text, every Venmo payment Vanessa made to Derek disguised as office supplies. There were 23 of them, totaling $11,400. Every hotel charge, the $6,800 weekend in Savannah, the $2,200 boutique hotel in Asheville, the $34,000 Capital One card she'd hidden. I organized it all in a binder, a physical binder with labeled tabs. Kestrel called it the most beautiful evidence package she'd ever seen. I told her I'm a data recovery specialist. She said, clearly. Step 5. And this is the part that required patience. I waited. For 47 days, I lived with Vanessa as if nothing had changed. I ate dinner with her. I watched Netflix with her. She'd come home smelling like Tom Ford, and I'd ask about her day, and she'd say, "Long showings, you know how it is." And I'd nod. I nodded for 47 days. Every nod was a performance. Every "how was your day" was a line in a script I was writing in real time. The hardest part wasn't the anger. It was the acting. I am not a dramatic person. I had to become one. During those 47 days, the escalation continued. Vanessa got bolder. She started criticizing me openly. At a dinner with her friend Margot and Margot's husband Colton, Vanessa said, in front of everyone while I was cutting into a steak at Bavette, "Garrison's idea of excitement is updating his spreadsheets. I literally married an algorithm." Margot laughed. Colton had the decency to look uncomfortable. I ate my steak, medium rare. It was actually excellent. The potatoes were good too. I focused on the potatoes. Then came the spatial violations. She started reorganizing my home office, which meant moving my files, rearranging my desk. She threw away a box of Lorraine's things I'd been keeping: recipe cards, a few pieces of costume jewelry, the post-it notes from the fridge with the mortgage balance written in my mother's handwriting. I found them in the recycling bin. She said, "It's not healthy to hold on to all that, Garrison. You need to move forward." She said it with that practiced concern, that therapeutic voice she'd stolen from a podcast. I rescued the post-its. I put them in the binder. Column A, what she said. Column B, she threw away my dead mother's handwriting. The ally attack came from her mother, Bridget Caldwell. Bridget was a retired school administrator from Wauwatosa who had opinions about everything and expertise in nothing. At Easter brunch, at Vanessa's insistence, we hosted, Bridget pulled me aside in the kitchen and said, "Garrison, I'm going to be honest with you. Vanessa is withering. She's a vibrant woman married to a man who gives her nothing. No passion, no ambition. If she leaves you, I wouldn't blame her." She said this while I was plating deviled eggs. I put a paprika garnish on each one, perfectly centered, and said, "These are ready." And I carried them to the table. That's who they thought I was. A man who responds to insults with deviled eggs. And honestly, that's exactly who I am. Exactly deviled eggs. But I'm also the man who had, at that exact moment, a 247-page evidence binder in a locked filing cabinet at Harwick Digital, a real estate attorney on retainer, and a closing date circled in red on a calendar hidden in my car's glove compartment. The cruelest moment came on a Saturday in April. Vanessa came home at 11 p.m. from what she said was a networking event. She was glowing, flushed, happy in a way she hadn't been around me in over a year. She poured herself a glass of the Malbec I'd bought for our anniversary, which she'd forgotten, and sat on the couch and said, "Garrison, I've been thinking. Your mom's house. We should sell it. I know it's emotional, but it's just sitting there. We could use that money for our future." She said this to me. She said this to my face, suggesting we sell a house she had already listed, already found a buyer for me, and was already planning to pocket the money from. She was rehearsing the cover story. She was planting the seed so that later, when the money appeared, she could say it was a joint decision. I looked at her. She was backlit by the kitchen light, and for 1 second, she looked exactly like the woman at that housewarming party in 2019, the one telling the story about the secret room. And I realized Vanessa had always been about hidden things, secret rooms, hidden accounts, buried truths. The woman I fell in love with was a construction, a beautiful surface with rot underneath. "I'll think about it," I said. She smiled. "I'm doing this for us, Garrison. Column A, I'm doing this for us. Column B, she already did it for herself." The closing was scheduled for May 18th, 2023, a Thursday. Kestrel had coordinated with the title company, Heritage Title on West Wisconsin, to ensure the transaction proceeded normally on Vanessa's end. On paper, Lakewood Holdings, LLC, was purchasing 814 Chestnut Lane from the estate of Lorraine Lyle, with Vanessa Elliott acting as listing agent and, here's the forgery, co-executor of the estate. She had forged that designation too. She'd created a fraudulent document naming herself co-executor, which gave her the authority to authorize the sale. The real executor was me. Solely me. Lorraine's will was explicit. On the morning of May 18th, Vanessa left the house at 8:15 a.m. She was wearing the Tory Burch blazer and carrying a leather portfolio. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Long day of closings. Don't wait up." She smelled like Chanel No. 5, which she only wore for Derek. I knew her scents better than she knew mine. She walked out the door, humming. I drove to Heritage Title separately. Kestrel met me in the upstairs conference room. We had a live video feed of the closing room. Kestrel had arranged this through the title company's managing attorney, who was cooperating because he'd been informed of the forgery and did not want his firm implicated. Vanessa arrived at 9:30. Derek was with her. He waited in the lobby, scrolling his phone, legs crossed, looking like a man who was about to become $362,000 richer without doing a thing. Vanessa signed every document: listing agreement confirmation, deed transfer, closing disclosure. She signed the line marked seller/co-executor without hesitation. Each signature was another felony. Kestrel counted them quietly beside me. That's 3, 4, 5. She just committed her 6th forgery in 11 minutes. We watched her smile at the closing agent. She asked about the wire transfer timeline. How soon will the funds clear? 2 to 3 business days, the agent said. Vanessa nodded. She was already spending the money in her head. When she finished, the closing agent excused himself. He walked upstairs to our conference room. He looked at me, then at Kestrel, and said, "She signed everything." Kestrel handed him a manila envelope. Inside, a certified copy of Lorraine's will naming me as sole executor, the handwriting analysis proving the forged signatures, a printout of the fraudulent co-executor document Vanessa had created, and a letter from Kestrel's firm requesting the title company void the transaction and preserve all documents for law enforcement. The closing agent read the first page and sat down. "She's still downstairs," he said. "I know," I said. Kestrel said, "We'd like you to send her up." 3 minutes later, Vanessa walked into the conference room. She was holding the manila folder, the one with the dinosaur sticker. She saw me first, then Kestrel, then the binder. The binder was open on the table. Tab 1, forged signatures. Tab 2, recovered texts. Tab 3, hidden accounts. Tab 4, hotel receipts. Tab 5, Venmo transfers. Tab 6, the text where she called me almost sad. Her face did this thing I'll never forget. It went from confusion to recognition to fear in about 2 seconds. Her mouth opened. No sound. Her eyes went to the binder, then to me, then back to the binder. She set the manila folder down on the table. The dinosaur sticker caught the fluorescent light. "Garrison," she said. "What is this?" Kestrel answered. "Mrs. Elliott, my name is Kestrel Park. I represent your husband in matters related to the fraudulent sale of property located at 814 Chestnut Lane, Mint Hill, North Carolina. You have just signed multiple documents containing forged signatures and fraudulent executor claims. This transaction is void. The buyer, Lakewood Holdings, LLC, is a legal entity owned by your husband. He is, and always has been, the sole legal owner of this property. Additionally, I have here a comprehensive file documenting your extramarital relationship with Derek Baines, your hidden financial accounts, and misuse of marital assets, totaling approximately $52,400. This file has been prepared for submission to the Mecklenburg County District Attorney and the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services, which oversees real estate licensing. Do you understand what I've just told you?" Vanessa's hands were shaking. She looked at me. "Garrison, I can explain." "You don't need to," I said, and I picked up the binder, and I walked out. 7 words. That's all I gave her, after 47 days of nodding, after months of "how was your day?" after eating potatoes while she called me an algorithm. 7 words in a closed door. Downstairs, Derek was still in the lobby. He looked up from his phone when he saw me. He didn't know who I was. We'd never met. He smiled, that automatic salesman smile. "Hey, buddy, you closing today too?" "Already closed," I said. and I left. Kestrel handled the rest. She's worth every cent of the $14,200 I paid her. Within 1 week, the Mecklenburg County DA opened a fraud investigation into Vanessa's handling of the property. Forging an executor designation on a probate asset is a Class H felony in North Carolina. Forging signatures on real estate documents is a separate charge. Vanessa was looking at multiple counts. Within 2 weeks, Lakefront Realty fired her. Not because they cared about ethics, because Derek Baines was implicated in approving fraudulent listings and the brokerage's legal team panicked. Derek was terminated the same day. His wife, Paloma, received a copy of the evidence binder. Kestrel sent it via certified mail with a cover letter. I didn't ask her to do that. She did it because, in her words, Paloma deserves to know, and I'm petty. I like Kestrel. Within a month, Vanessa's real estate license was suspended pending investigation by the Wisconsin DSPS. Without a license, she couldn't work. Without work, she couldn't pay the $34,000 Capital One balance she'd been hiding. The credit union account in Racine was frozen as part of the fraud investigation. Derek, who had been living large on Vanessa's stolen money, was suddenly as broke as he was single. Paloma filed for divorce 11 days after receiving the binder. Bridget Caldwell, Vanessa's mother, the woman who told me Vanessa was withering, called me exactly once. I let it go to voicemail. She said, "Garrison, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Vanessa was only trying to help with the estate. You know how she is. She just gets ahead of herself." Gets ahead of herself. That's what forgery is now, getting ahead of yourself. I deleted the voicemail and blocked her number. Margot, the friend who laughed when Vanessa called me an algorithm, sent me a text that said, "I had no idea, Garrison. I'm so sorry." I didn't respond, not because I was angry at Margot, but because I had nothing to say. Some people enable cruelty by laughing at it, and the apology doesn't erase the laugh. Vanessa tried to contact me 4 times after the closing. The first was a voicemail, crying, saying she was sorry and that Derek had manipulated her. The second was an email, 3 paragraphs of justification, blaming her childhood, blaming my emotional distance, blaming grief. The third was a letter, handwritten. It said, "I loved your mother too." I almost threw up reading that. The fourth was through her attorney, requesting we mediate the divorce rather than litigate. Kestrel responded with a 40-page filing that included every piece of evidence. There was no mediation. The divorce finalized in September 2023. I got everything I was entitled to, which, thanks to Vanessa's documented fraud and infidelity, was considerable. She got nothing from the house. She got nothing from my savings. She was ordered to repay the $52,400 in misused marital assets. The criminal case is still pending as of now. Kestrel tells me the DA is pursuing charges, but that it may take another 6 months. I'm patient. I've been patient my whole life. People mistake that for weakness. It is not weakness. The house in Mint Hill is mine. Legally, fully, permanently mine. I drove down in October after the divorce was final. It was a Sunday morning. Cool. The Japanese maple in the backyard had turned this deep crimson that looked like it was burning from the inside. I unlocked the front door with the same key Lorraine gave me when I was 14. The house smelled like dust and old wood and faintly cinnamon from the potpourri she used to keep in a bowl by the front door. I walked to the kitchen. The door frame still had my height marks, every pencil line, every age in Lorraine's handwriting. I put my hand on the highest one, age 18, 5'11", and I stood there for a while, not thinking, just being in the house, being home. I pulled out the post-it notes I'd rescued from the recycling bin, the ones with the mortgage balance in Lorraine's handwriting. The last one read, $0, paid in full. I stuck it back on the fridge. Uncle Orrin came by that afternoon. He brought barbecue from a place on Independence Boulevard and 2 bottles of cheerwine. We sat on the back porch and ate pulled pork and watched the maple tree and didn't talk much. That's the thing about Orrin. He never needs to fill silence. When we were done, he looked at the house and said, "Your mom would be proud of you, kid." I told him about the notebook, the leather one Lorraine gave me, the one with the floor plans and renovation budgets. I told him I was going to start, not with my mother's house. That stays as it is, forever, exactly as she left it, but with other properties, distressed houses, fixable houses, houses that need someone to check under the pretty part and do the work. He smiled. "The mess is always under the pretty part," he said. "But sometimes what's under the mess is something worth saving." I'm back in Milwaukee now, new apartment on Brady Street. It's small, 1 bedroom, original hardwood floors, a kitchen window that faces east so I get morning sun. I make coffee every morning in a French press Lorraine gave me, and I sit by that window and I look at the light and I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Not happiness exactly, more like solidity, like my feet are on ground that's actually mine. The hobby binder isn't a hobby anymore. I closed on my first investment property last month, a 2-bedroom in Bay View that needs new windows and a kitchen gut. Orrin is flying up next week to help me plan the renovation. I've got the spreadsheet ready, columns A through F. Everything accounted for, everything in its place. Vanessa called one last time, about 3 weeks ago. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. She sounded small, tired. She said, "Garrison, do you ever think about the housewarming party when we first met?" I said, "Yeah, I think about it." She said, "I'm sorry, I mean that." I said, "I know you do." And then I said goodbye. Not with anger, not with satisfaction. Just with the particular exhaustion of someone who has finally set down something very heavy. I hung up. I poured another cup of coffee, and I opened the notebook, the leather one, the one from Lorraine, to a fresh page.